Hello everyone who is watching our YouTube live stream or the recording of this week's growth call. I'm Christoph Atteneder and I'm your host today. As you know, I already posted the Google Hangout invitation link in the chat on the left, so you can join us here in the Hangout. Or if you just want to watch the live stream, feel free to post any comments and questions in the chat, and we try to address them latest at the end of our growth call today. Our growth calls, like the one today, are about everything that helps to grow the Bisq network itself. If you're watching this, you probably know it already, but Bisq is the only true decentralized exchange to exchange fiat with cryptocurrencies or crypto with other cryptocurrencies. If you're interested in more details, please have a look at our introductional video on Bisq, which I'll link in the description below after the call. So today it's quite exciting. Today's call will be mainly about our new release 0.90, and we'll talk about where we need your help for the final steps. But before we get into it, just a short Bisq market update. Last month was unbelievable for Bisq, so we had our biggest month, and this month looks really promising as well. At the moment, the total US dollar volume is over 4.3 million. And if the trading continues like it is at the moment, we might end somewhere between 5 to 6 million in the end. So it will be our second best month for sure. Let's see if it will be our best. It really depends, again, mainly on Monero trading activity. So also this month, the Monero trades account for nearly, let's say, I think it's nearly 90% of the total volume. So again, it's very driven by Monero. So back and hello, our latest attendee in our YouTube, our live channel. Hi, great having you. Yeah, before I get into details, maybe do you want to, what's your name? Just a sec. I think you're muted at the moment. Do you want to introduce?
Yeah, Steve, sorry, hi.
Great, sorry. I haven't met you in person so far. Steve, can you maybe, for everyone, just quickly tell your interest in Bisq, what you're doing in Bisq, and then I continue with the regular call.
Sure. So I guess for the past several months, I've been doing documentation mainly for Bisq, and I'm going to continue doing that. But now I think for the next near future, maybe month or couple of months until the DAO release on mainnet, I'm going to be doing some pushing an education initiative to just tell people about the DAO and help them understand it, so that when it does go live, they'll understand it and hopefully use it. So that's kind of my focus. Going to be doing that through a variety of writing, emails, speaking, things like that. So yeah, it's good to meet you finally. I've seen you everywhere and never really met
I'm
you.
sorry, so I haven't seen you so far.
Yeah.
I was so focused on getting the redesign done. So yeah, didn't have any.
I actually wasn't. My flight landed like an hour early. I wasn't even supposed to be on the ground now, so I figured I'm here. I might as well join.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's get back to the to our new release. So we are luring you already the last couple of weeks, but it seems that the waiting is nearly over. So we are really close to start our final testing round. And to get there, we need your help. And there are two options for you to support Bisq and especially to support our latest release. There is translations and testing. So let's go first to translations. Not only did we add new translation strings for this release and new locales, so we will introduce Vietnamese and Thai for this release, but we also needed to change existing translations. So the main changes were that we had to remove lots of columns in the translation strings. So what we need to do is to get rid of all the columns that shouldn't be there in all translations. It wasn't possible to do kind of a final replace, because not all colons should be gone, and also not all colons at the end of the translation string should be gone. So it really depends. So it's a kind of a manual work, and we use the web tool Transifex to translate Bisq into every other language, and also we used the same keys where we did the changes with the colons. They show up as not translated entries in Transifex. So the languages that need to be updated, which are already supported in the client, are German, which I'll take care and already started, Greek, Spanish, Portuguese, Serbian, traditional Chinese, Hungarian, Romanian, Russian, French, Vietnamese, and Thai. I will post everything in the end in the description, so you don't have to remember that. So for all this, so if you do speak one of these languages, it would be great if you could go to Transifex. So now I will quickly show you how this is done. I will share my screen to do that. So let's see. Can you see my screen? Just maybe give me a thumbs up. Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. So what you're seeing, let me just switch to the. So what you're seeing is the dashboard of Transifex. So I will post this URL on the top in the description below. So if you hit that, you can apply to be a translator for a certain language. Let's say you want to translate in German. Then you have to request to become a translator in German, and I will accept any translation request. And then if you're on the dashboard, just go to languages, for example, German, and then select. We just have one project and one display file, and then you can go to translate. Then in this view, if you translate a couple of languages, you can switch back and forth, but for that point, we keep it for German. So here, that's the important one. There is untranslated. So if you click there, you have all the untranslated strings, and just pick up one. So just let me see. I just want to take one with a colon issue. So probably they are not. We have a couple of new translations as well, especially everything that is DAO related. So it would be great if you could translate them. But if not, at least it would be great to. I think that is one. No, that's also a new one. We have lots of. Let me just quickly get to the beginning. I remember connected peers. Yeah. So this is one. If you get a suggestion for nearly all translations, especially the one who had already a translation. So here the translation for connected peers is verbundene peers. Not perfectly a perfect translation, but it's okay. But what you see is if you click on this copy, use this icon, then it's entered, and the only thing that you have to do is remove the colon, save the translation, and it's marked as translated. So that needs to be done for all the strings that had a column before. So for example, that yeah. So it is some work, and there are new translations as well for the DAO especially. So I guess it's maximum 3 hours work to finish that off. And of course, this work is also up for compensation end of the month, and it would help us a lot, because it only makes sense to do, even if it's mainly about colon removal. But it's good if you speak the language and we're not using some bad translation. And also for the new DAO keys, yeah, you need to speak the language anyways. So that is the first point where we need your help to polish the new release as good as possible, not only for English, but also for all other supported languages. Sharing now. Just let me get back to my notes so I'm not missing anything. Yeah. The second big part is testing. So the 0.90 release nearly touched every class, at least in the UI parts. So it needs in-depth testing, that we're not publishing any screens that may be broken. They are already developer tested by myself and Manfred and others, tested a lot during development. So it should be, everything should be fine, but still we need to test it thoroughly. And this time we'll do it in a more structured way. Until now, we had a Google spreadsheet where we had our testing scenarios, and everyone went through it and checked if they're okay or if there were any issues. But now, as we have Devin, who has a strong background in QA and testing in general, he is setting up test quality for GitHub right now, and he's also porting over all existing test scenarios. So he will also create a document what needs to be done to participate in the testing. From the engineering skills which you need to participate in testing, unfortunately, if you don't have any, if you don't have you need a GitHub account. That's first to test, and you need to be able to build the Bisq client from source. So there is a proper documentation how to do that in our GitHub repo. So even if you are not a developer, it should be possible to do this. But yeah, of course, it's a little bit more tricky. And you have to have the local reg test setup ready to test all the trading scenarios. That means that you have a local Bitcoin instance that is configured for reg test, and you can build from source different clients with different starting parameters. It's all documented properly in our wiki, and I will post the links in the description. But yeah, that's a precondition to participate in testing. Manfred, you want to add something?
Yeah, regarding the development setup, we just improved those documents, so they're all in the main repository or in contribution, or in the contribution file. You will find the links. We removed it from the GitHub wiki, so okay. They're directly in the project, and they're quite well structured now, so it shouldn't be really a problem for a developer to get the setup, everything running. Okay, perfect. Yeah, then that's even better. Even better. So if you're interested, join us on Slack in the dev channel and say you're interested, and we'll guide you from there. So it will be especially great to have lots of different setups this time, especially if you are on Windows or Linux. It would be great to join us, as most of the developers are using Mac at the moment. We do use Linux for building, but just with a virtual machine setup. So it would be great for people who use it on a daily basis, different Linux distributions, to participate. Also, the release will be built still with the Oracle JDK, but we also support the OpenJDK now, OpenJDK 10. So it would be also great to have their different versions to get everything properly tested. The next thing that we want to talk about today is the Bisq DAO. So the Bisq DAO, it's not that we release with this version the Bisq DAO. The Bisq DAO is already running for I think it's more than a year or longer. But yeah, I think a little bit more than a year. But we used spreadsheets and other communication possibilities and tools to do that. And with this release, everything we did kind of somehow manually will be done within the client. And in that release, you can try this out on testnet. And if everything goes fine, we might see early next year our launch on mainnet.
So Manfred, do you want to talk about what you can do if that's released on testnet, and I do a screen sharing from my client, or do you want to run it yourself? I can do a screen sharing.
I have not prepared now anything
okay, then
making a presentation. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can just talk about the initial setup, how to, because I have to restart now the client. Can you see the client?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so you might recognize that that's a kind of a new design, which will be launched with the 0.90 release as well. So don't get distracted too much, but the menu items are still the same. So if we go to the settings section, there is a new option that you can switch between networks. So by default, it will be configured for mainnet. And if you want to try out the Bisq DAO, you have to switch to testnet. So I will do that now. So you get the warning that you have to restart the client. No worries. You can run this with your production instance. It has separate data directory, so there won't be any conflicts if you do this. So let me shut down the client, and I will restart it again. And I have to start the screen sharing afterwards. Just give me a sec. So I'm starting the client right now.
For the more technical people, they can do it as well over the command line arguments with the Bitcoin network to define it with testnet, and then they are starting the client automatically in that mode. Also, Bisq DAO is enabled only in testnet and in rec test mode by default at the moment, and yeah, on mainnet not, of course.
Yeah. So here you will recognize immediately that there is a new menu item activated by default, and that's the DAO section of the Bisq network. So Manfred, so if we release on testnet, what can someone do to help us test the client?
Yeah, we will have very short periods for the voting. So what we do usually once a month to make the compensation requests, and at the end of the month we do the voting. That will be on mainnet in also similar time frame of 1 month. But for testing and testnet, we will have very short periods of a few days or 1 week maximum, just to be able to. It would be boring to wait for 1 month to have the interesting stuff with voting and with the result. So we want to iterate many times over this and give more possibilities that people can make their requests and can play around with all the features. So in the testnet version, all the features will be enabled. There are a few quite advanced features which probably will be deactivated on mainnet, like the asset listing fee and the proof. I mean, that will probably not be deactivated, but proof of burn, for instance, or bonding. But yeah, for testing, we leave everything which is implemented there to have a chance to find problems and find bugs. So what you can do, you can browse your BSQ wallet. It's it shows you how much BSQ you have. You have 0 at the beginning. That's maybe an important thing, as I do the Genesis distribution just to my addresses, because it would be complicated when people request first with their address to be part of the Genesis. So it's much easier that I just do it to myself, and I send everybody who want to participate then some BSQ. So the first thing when you want to participate is that you go to the receive button on the left, and you send me per email or in Slack or wherever, you send me your BSQ address, and I send you some BSQ, maybe 1,000 BSQ or whatever. You don't really need much. I mean, the fees are very low. What you need for doing some activities, there's always a fee attached. But for playing around, it doesn't matter if you have 10,000 or 100,000 BSQ or 100 BSQ. And with this BSQ, you can send it to yourself or to somebody else. You will see all these transactions, and it's basically like a normal wallet, very basic, simple, with just simple send and receive features, and in the transactions view, you will see all the transactions then. When you are running it in the standard mode, you run it as a light node. That means that you get the BSQ transactions from a seed node. So what you can run it also as a full node. That requires a little bit more setup. Then you have to read up the documentation in the source code, as in the repository. There is a documentation how to run the DAO with as a full node. You need to run Bitcoin Core then on the background and configure a few things. But for the basic test, you don't need it. Of course, I'm happy when other people are running full nodes as well. And yeah, the interesting stuff is then in the governance. When you go on the governance tab, they are in there while we are in the proposal phase. You can, at the moment, we have very short periods of, I think, just 3 or 4 blocks or so. Yeah, 3 blocks here. You see the overview. Here you see also more or less the dates, the estimations, because we count in blocks, and you never know exactly when the blocks arrive. So you see when the vote phase starts with blind vote and the vote reveal. So while we are in the proposal phase, you can create proposals. That's at the moment we are in the blind vote phase. You could only vote on existing proposals, but at the moment there's nothing there. So when you make a proposal, you can make a compensation request. You can make a reimbursement proposal. That will be a feature for the new trade protocol what we are working on. So that's not released yet, and so it has no function at the moment. But once the DAO is out and once we have the new trade protocol, the reimbursement is a part of the new trade protocol. You can request a removal for altcoin. When you think, for instance, that Bitcoin Cash was only a scam and we shouldn't support it anymore, then I'm happy to support this and kick this out. Or some other altcoin which you think that's not a good idea to, for instance, altcoins which have the name Bitcoin 2. I think that's just confusing for newcomers, and it's just abuse of branding of an established brand. So that would be one candidate what I would try to remove. And then in their voting, the other stakeholders can vote on this if they support this or don't support this, and only when they get a majority, then it will be executed, basically. You can browse, so every proposal after a confirmation is then visible, and you can see the proposals there. They're always linked with a GitHub issue. I'm not 100% sure how we deal with this in the testing phase. Maybe we add something in GitHub for this testing, that it's not confusing with the normal compensation requests or whatever. But basically, there should be always some background information in GitHub, for instance, where people can read about the reasoning of this proposal. For instance, why you want to remove an altcoin, or why you want to make a compensation request and want to get some BSQ. And yeah, when we are in the blind voting and you're browsing the open proposals, you can vote on those proposals. I've showed this in another video a few weeks ago. And you can define how much BSQ you want to put on your vote. The more BSQ you put on it, the more weight your vote will have compared to other votes. And it's important that you are online at least once in the vote reveal phase. So that will be something like 1 or 2 days. And you just have to start the Bisq application that a transaction gets published where your secret key with what your vote was encrypted gets published, and all the other peers can decrypt your blind vote. So that's of course required to make the vote result. Otherwise, it's still encrypted and nobody can read it. And you don't need to do anything. It's just that you have to be online, that the application can publish this transaction. And then in the vote result, you will see then the result, how the proposals have been voted on. Of course, here I think when you scroll down to the first, there should be 1 or 2 in the beginning, but I think you had a syncing issue. At the moment, the setup is still not well established. I think the seed node is not working well. There are a few things to do. But basically, you would see here the results, how many BSQ have been issued by compensation requests or reimbursement requests, and what was the voting in detail, how much support the request got, and so on. Yeah, then there are a few, also you can apply for a bonded role. There are some roles like being an arbitrator or holding the domain name or running a seed node. Also all roles which have some trust or have some important, or where which cannot be decentralized in a meaningful way, like the domain name, we cannot decentralize this. So we need some person who are holding the domain name, and to avoid or to add more security to that, we require that those persons are putting up, a bond is basically like a security deposit. They have to log in some BSQ, and in case when they would violate the role, like Roger Ver is doing with Bitcoin.com, for instance, that they're basically abusing the brand of Bitcoin, then the stakeholders can vote on confiscating this bond, and basically your bond can be destroyed and you lose then the money, basically what you have locked up. And that is different depending on the maximum damage what you can do with the role. Some roles you cannot do much damage, like running a seed node, for instance, or whatever. And others, like holding the domain name or being an arbitrator, have much higher bonds. And when you request for such a bonded role and you get accepted as a first, all those roles have to get accepted in the voting process. And when you have been accepted, you have to make your bond transaction and lock in the money. And you would see this then. The bonds are then locked with a certain unlock time. So when you stepping back from that role, you make an unlock transaction, you revoke the role, and only after this unlocking time, which gives us some time to still confiscate the bond in case the user would have abused in the last minute his role. And only after the unlock time, your money is completely unlocked and you can spend it like normal BSQ. During this time, when it's locked or when it's in this unlocking phase, nobody would accept this BSQ. You cannot spend it, basically. And there's another advanced feature for bonded reputation. So you could put up a bond. You can, there's by default some salt added with this. That's also an advanced feature where we have some use cases in future with off-chain trade protocol. I don't want to get in the details of this, but there are some ideas how to use this in future. It could be maybe also used earlier for instance, to avoid the chargeback risk or to reduce the chargeback risk. A user could say, I'm willing to lock up whatever 50,000 BSQ as a bond, and I guarantee that I don't do a chargeback. And then we could add this feature when people have put up a bond, that they get a higher trade limit, because then as a Bitcoin Bitcoin buyer, he cannot, the Bitcoin buyer who could make the chargeback, he would risk to lose his bond, and of course that would require a very long lockup period, because the chargeback can be done theoretically even half a year after the trade. That's just one idea how it could be used, or whatever. People could use it basically to buy a reputation, to say, okay, I'm trustworthy, and I prove it by putting in a lot of money which is locked up quite a lot of time. And when I would scam somebody, then the victim could make a confiscation request in the DAO, and when he could convince the stakeholders, then my bond can be confiscated. That would require always a very high percentage and very high quorum in the voting, so you cannot confiscate easily. That requires very high consensus in the stakeholdership. So it should be a very exceptional case. Basically, it should never happen. It should be just a security feature which can be used to enable, for instance, higher trade volumes. Then the asset listing fee. Also, we will start. We get way too much altcoins listed, and most of them get never traded. I would estimate something like 90% of the altcoins never get traded at all, so they don't add any value. We have a lot of work with it, with reviewing and merging the code, and we will add some fee for this. We had quite a lot of discussions and so on, and I think a very fair model is that the altcoin issuer can define how much fee they want to pay, the fees per day. So when they only pay a very low fee because they don't have money, then they have basically a trial version for just a few days. So I think at the beginning it's something like 1 BSQ per day. So when they want to have a trial period of 1 week, they can get it with 7 BSQ, which is something like $7 in our current estimation, or that evaluation that we say 1 BSQ is $1. So I think nobody can complain to pay a listing fee of $7. And then they need to be traded. I mean, when they can motivate the community that it's traded and they're reaching the minimum required trade volume, then it stays listed. When it's not traded anymore, then we are always looking back 7 days, what the issuer has basically paid in fee. And in the last 7 days, there always have to be a minimum, I think, of 0.01 Bitcoin trade volume, which is currently about $60. So when nobody's trading even $60 with your altcoin, then probably it's not worth to have it listed. And when you are not sure that you can reach this, you can put up more fees. You can pay for 3 months, then you pay 90 BSQ. It's still super cheap, and you have at least 3 months or the initial trial period where you don't get kicked out, even if there's 0 trades. And afterwards, it always look back the last 90 days, and then in the last 90 days, you need to reach 0.01 Bitcoin. When you don't reach it, you get delisted, which means that you cannot select such a altcoin anymore when you want to make an altcoin account. It's just removed. When you have already set up an altcoin account with it, it's still there. When you have an offer, it's still there. So it's not really killed. It's just basically for new users, so they don't have an opportunity to create an account with it. This amount the amount of fee per day and the minimum trade volume can be changed over voting. So a big part in the voting is to change any parameter of the DAO, like the trading fee, or like, for instance, this fee for the asset listing. So it can be easily that after a few versions we increase this fee or whatever. It depends. Also, anybody can make a request and the stakeholders will vote on this. We just want to be initially very low. So basically we want to avoid discussions that the fee are too high and they cannot afford to pay this fee. I mean, when an altcoin cannot afford the $7, then okay, they cannot afford also to have a web page. So I think there is 0 room for discussion here. And that's the asset listing fee part. Then another is this proof of burn, which is also an advanced feature. I don't want to get lost in this detail. But there are some use case where we might use this in future with the new trade protocol. The Bitcoin trading fee will be sent to a Bitcoin address, which also can be defined in the DAO. That could be another project like the Tor project, a project what we want to support, and where basically Bisq is donating or paying out some money to them because it's a very important technology what we are using. Or another alternative is that it's just a Bisq donation address, and a way to bring this Bitcoin back to the BSQ ecosystem would be that the person who is operating, who has the key for the donation address, that's me at the moment, that I'm selling the Bitcoin against, or I'm buying BSQ on the market with the Bitcoin which I have received from the trading fees, and then I'm burning this BSQ, and by burning it, we are redistributing it to all stakeholders, and with that, we are converting the Bitcoin fees to BSQ fees. It would be then effectively the same like the BSQ fees, which also the trading fee in BSQ, they get burned, and by burning, they get distributed to all the stakeholders. So that would be one practical application for this. It could be also used for something else. You can define any pre-image, which is any string, whatever you want to write in this. And you as the creator of the transaction are the only person who knows the pre-image. Also from the pre-image, a pre-image is the source for a hash. So you create a hash from the pre-image and you cannot revert this. From the hash, you cannot find out the pre-image. So it can be whatever secret string you have there. and you as the creator of the transaction can use this for whatever purpose. There can be some applications where that's useful, that you can basically prove that you have burned some BSQ. You can only use this basically one time, because once you have revealed the result or the pre-image to somebody, you have no guarantee that this other person is sharing the pre-image, and then it's not safe anymore. But you can also make signatures. So there will be a tool when you have created a proof of burn transaction. You can sign with the Bitcoin keys with what you have funded the transaction. You can sign any message, and another peer can send you a challenge message, and you have to sign it and send him back the signature, and the other peer can verify it also in the application directly. And that might be also a useful tool which you could repeat. So you only need to create one proof of burn transaction, and you can then make thousands of such signatures, and it's then always cryptographically secure, that you can prove cryptographically that you are the owner of this proof of burn transaction. And it could be something similar like reputation. You can burn some BSQ and prove it to others, and with that you don't want to destroy your reputation, because otherwise the money it has no value anymore. When you're burning $1,000, for instance, for getting higher trade amount limits, and you would scam then somebody, then this reputation is destroyed, and it would be public that you're a scammer, and this proof of burn transaction has no value anymore. So it's it's similar like the bonding reputation, but with the bonding you can get it back after unlocking. Here you never can get it back, so it's probably not so interesting for most people, but maybe there are some applications where it makes sense. At least, as I said, for converting the Bitcoin trading fees back to BSQ, that's for sure a useful, interesting application for this feature. Yeah, those are basically, I mean, the most important is, of course, the compensation requests and the voting. I think most people should focus on this. And I really invite every stakeholder, every contributor in Bisq to play around with it. Now you cannot make it doesn't matter when you make mistakes, like for instance forgetting to not be online in the vote reveal phase would lead that your vote have been invalid. So you pay a small fee for voting and for proposal, and when you forget to be online in the vote reveal phase, you're basically losing this. At the moment it's only testnet coins. When it's on mainnet, it's a little bit more lost. So in this phase, it's good, I think, to get used to it. It's good for us to get feedback from usability, and especially, of course, for bugs. Maybe there are some bugs and some problems. We want to discover all this before we go on live on mainnet. And when you contribute there in Bisq, I mean, it's about it's the core of the Bisq project at the end. When the DAO would not work or would have a fatal flaw, then that all can be very dangerous for the project. So it's really important that we get the very good testing coverage for this, and the more people are helping with in that area, the better.
Yeah, there's one more use case, Manfred, I wanted to point out. Is of course you can also trade, and we can also pay trading fees with Bisq. Is it right on testnet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That maybe can show it, but probably
I would just quickly create an account. Just let's do a shorter one.
Maybe Alipay. Yeah, that's easy.
So
I'm not 100% sure if the arbitrate is registered. We'll see it immediately. Yeah, it's good. So
at least I can and here is the part where I can decide if I want to use Bisq to pay the fees or Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. And you see that the BSQ is much cheaper. It should be something around 90%, but with Bitcoin volatility, it's a little bit hard to estimate it. We are taking And I think, we're taking the latest trade price from BSQ and using that basically to convert it back to a euro over the Bitcoin price. So yeah, that's a little bit tricky to get really right. As said, it should be basically 0.02 euro. And I think because Bitcoin price was going down so much, it has changed a little bit in the meantime. But you see that when you, as a user, as a trader, when you choose to use BSQ, and with that you're supporting the Bisq DAO, and it's basically, you have to buy some BSQ on the market, and you are buying it basically from the contributors. When there are no buyers for BSQ, the contributors who earn the BSQ cannot sell it, and the ecosystem would not work. So it's really an active support for the BSQ ecosystem. At the end, the contributors, that they have a motivation to spend their time and skills to improve Bisq and work on Bisq. And to incentivize people to make this change, of course, a little bit more work. You need to make this extra step to buy some BSQ. Of course, you can buy more BSQ and don't need to buy it every time again for every trade. To incentivize the people to move over to BSQ, we give a big discount. And the fees can be changed in DAO voting, and probably will be changed in DAO voting. Probably the Bitcoin fee will go up over time. And at the moment we have decreased. So the Bitcoin fee is the same. It's a 0.2%, and the BSQ fee is now super low. So Bisq will not nearly earn nothing. That would be not sustainable. I mean, we're getting closer to a break even now with the fees. And we want to go on with this, of course, to be economically sustainable. And to reach this, we will over time increase the BSQ fee as well as the Bitcoin fee, but the discount rate will be the same. It will be just maybe in half a year, then later the Bitcoin fee will be 3 times or 5 times higher like now, and the BSQ fee will be more or less like the Bitcoin fee at the moment.
Manfred, if you're running this on testnet, the testing cycles, what would be the exit conditions that we say, okay, we'll go on mainnet with the Bisq DAO code?
So when we don't find any major flaws and usability, I mean, the usability I don't take too serious. At the moment, there are no pop-ups explaining all the features because it's intended for the core contributors, basically. I mean, it's not a democratic model where anybody should vote. Only those people should vote who really know what's going on in Bisq, who are basically working on Bisq. And those should have spent enough time to learn about the DAO, to see to read about the documents which are out, and we are producing more and more. And so I have not, at least now, maybe later we add more like that, more information inside in the application, but at the moment there's not much educational information in the DAO, like explaining what the things really mean, like the bonding or whatever. But when there are others, when people who understand the basics of the DAO and get confused by some features, then of course we want to improve this and fix this usability issues. But of course, the most important to spot bugs, stability. There might be also, like at the moment, there are still some issues with the seed node and with on the peer-to-peer network, this data exchange. It's not very stable at the moment. And beside that, I will continue to write more tests to get a higher test coverage of the DAO. So it's hard to, I mean, as long as we have some major bugs, we will not release, of course. But even if we don't find major bugs, it doesn't mean that we are releasing immediately. So we need to get some good feeling that we feel safe.
So you do have a feeling that early 2019? Sounds fine.
I mean, when everything goes good and there are no major flaws, it can be earliest, I think, in 2 months after the testnet launch, maybe 3 months more realistic.
Mm-hmm. So, and if we go live on mainnet, what existing contributors, do they have to do anything to receive their Bisq token they earned over time, or is it?
When also the contributors have used, with the initial genesis, what we did a year ago, we invited all the the users to send me the BSQ address. That was a very old version. There could be some bugs that, there could be some issues that these old wallets are not really compatible anymore. So we will invite and many people have lost they did not care and forget about it or whatever. So I will invite everybody again to renew, basically, to send me then with the actual application a new address again, and I allocate it to the old address and to the amount. And with that, they will receive then from the Genesis transaction some BSQ when we launch. And yeah, that's it basically.
Okay, and for trader, of course, they can then, as soon as it's live on mainnet, they can buy BSQ tokens and pay with a kind of reduced fee.
Exactly. As soon after the first block in from the Genesis transaction, also when we are publishing the release, it's already done, the Genesis, and then anybody can, any contributor who has earned BSQ can sell the BSQ.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't have the scenario that no one is selling their BSQ tokens.
At least I will sell some to start the market, and I mean, there will be a period of price finding, which will be very volatile probably, because it's hard for the market to discover what's the real fair price of the project, and that will take a while. So don't expect that it will be super stable in the first week or so. But of course, it can be interesting times, like always in such events, and yeah.
Bernard is asking if we have kind of if there's a fallback plan if we find a bug when it's on mainnet already.
That's a very good question. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the DAO, of the Ethereum's Lockit DAO, like code is law, and and the humans don't exist in the background, and everything is just magic. And when there is a big bug, then that's all forgotten, and they make a rewriting of history. Code is not law; it's all intention, human intentions. What we try to achieve, and when there are bugs or hacks, we try to fix it. There will be some security measurements, like we can deactivate trading, we can basically put the DAO on a hold, and when money is lost, maybe because of bugs or whatever, it will be reimbursed. That's another use case for the reimbursement request. So when, for instance, there's a bug in the code, you make a transaction and your BSQ get burned, and it's clear the reason was a bug, then those people can make a reimbursement request and they get it back. And for the DAO, it's a zero-sum thing, because maybe there are 10,000 BSQ burned, and then you issue 10,000 BSQ. So there was no reason. The reason for burning was a bug, and then we do the reimbursement, and it's to undo basically the burning. And when there is, when somebody would manage to hack it or so, we try to also when it was stolen from some users, we try to also to reimburse it and to burn the stolen funds. So when we can stop it immediately, that we can be sure that the hacker has not already traded it, and we cannot know who is that the current owner is really the hacker. Then we try to block this transaction, and of course some stupid idiots will shout censorship, but I mean, there's no reason to protect hackers. It's not like a mutable database, or Bitcoin is not a database, but immutable ledger like Bitcoin and a global money system. It's the funding and the management system for Bisq, and it has the intention to work to enable that contributors get paid and have a financial motivation to work on Bisq. That's the intention of this whole project. And when anything goes wrong, which is a risk for this intention, then we try to fix it with all the means what we have.
Hodl Bitcoin is asking, how will that be distributed or sold? I think he's talking about 2.5 million BSQ tokens, which will
it's not an ICO. We are not, Bisq is not selling any BSQ. The BSQ, the 2.5 million from the Genesis, they are distributed to all the contributors of Bisq from the past. Also all the people who are working now, like a translator who is helping us now, a tester who is helping us now, So before we are on live on mainnet, everybody can become part of this Genesis transaction by working for Bisq. And from the very beginning, from the first day when the project has started, everybody who has worked on Bisq will be part of this Genesis distribution, and they will be the only one who will sell it. So Bisq itself doesn't sell and doesn't ask for money or whatever like ICOs usually. We have a running project. We are already hopefully even cash positive, basically, as when we earn more on trading fee, like what we are spending on contributions per month. And the contributors are selling their BSQ on the market.
Okay, perfect. And Benai is asking how much BSQ would be needed to currently support all the transactions. I think we had, depending on the volume, of course, we had fees paid out 15,000 up to 30,000, 35,000 US dollars, I think. So it would be, also we have the internal valuation of $1 US is one BSQ token. But of course, in the beginning, we have the reduced fee. So it will be less, as we have 9%. So let's say,
I mean, it's also a question how long this discount will stay like this. It can be changed already in the first month when somebody make a request for increasing the BSQ fee and increasing also the Bitcoin fee to keep the balance basically of the discount. So it's hard to prognosticate because anybody can make this request, and it's
I think in the beginning it will be a couple of thousands, but then if we change it, it will be a couple of 10,000s. And of course, if the volume increases and doubles as we saw it, or triples as we saw it month over month over the last 3 months, then of course there will be lots of BSQ demand for paying the trading fees if they want to save money and pay less.
I see. If we continue the trend or even improve it, then we should be basically earn already more by trading fees like what we are spending per month, and that would be, of course, a very positive sign for the launch. It might be then a little bit less because of the reduced BSQ fee, but not everybody will use BSQ at the beginning. I assume it will take a few months. And I mean, our goal is to reach at least something like 80-90%. That of 80 or 90% of the traders are using BSQ. And when we reach this goal, we will probably reduce then this discount also, because then it's not needed to motivate the people anymore. And that will take a few months for sure, maybe half a year. But it's a dynamic process. Nobody can prognosticate.
Yeah, and Benai is pointing out, of course, in the beginning, it's the contributors have the power. They have contributed the most to the platform, so they will change the fee accordingly, how it makes sense for the platform to be successful and sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, changing a parameter also requires very high quorum. That means a quorum is the amount of BSQ which is required that the vote is accepted. So when only 5 people have voted with 2,000 BSQ and the quorum is 50,000 BSQ, then they would not have reached it with 10,000 BSQ. So it requires some major stakeholders to be part of the voting. That should avoid that changes are done too easily, especially with parameter changes, because they can be very critical. I mean, you have to think very well about strategically, like changing the fee can be very negative. I mean, we don't want to have super high fees and then lose a lot of traders because of this. So it has to be a very reasonable discussion also before doing such stuff. And it needs a big consensus. And there's also a high percentage. I think 80%. You need acceptance. So when there's no clear consensus in the stakeholdership, it will not be successful. So changing such stuff like the fees will not be super easy. So when some new contributor who thinks it's a good idea to increase the fee by, I mean, also the changing a parameter will always have a maximum amount, how much you can increase or decrease it, to avoid too disruptive changes. So we cannot change the fee 10 times or whatever. Depends on the parameter, but every parameter has a maximum multiplicator here. And for the fees, it might be maybe 3 times, maybe 5 times, but for sure not 10 times. We need to keep it quite high, because for volatility reasons. When BSQ or when the price of BSQ is not $1 but $10 or $20 or $50, then we need to reduce the fee a lot. Otherwise, the BSQ fee is more expensive, like the Bitcoin fee, and then we need to react quickly, and we have to decrease the BSQ fee by 5 times, maybe 2-3 months in serial. So we have to be flexible with this. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, but it will be a slow transition, I guess, as people still are able to pay in Bitcoin the trading fees. So yeah, I think we'll see when it's live how the parameters play out.
Yeah, so flexibility is a key in every aspect here in the DAO. We intentionally avoided to make too much stuff completely automated, because when you make a mistake conceptually there, or when you have a hack there, then the damage is much higher. Like when you have, with the voting, we have the human factor basically, and you can make corrections, and you get more flexibility. And I think that's very important in such system, because there's so much complexity and unpredictability in such a system that you need to adapt on the situation.
Cool. Yeah. Hodl Bitcoin is also pointing out that he wants to make an Austrian translation of the client. Yeah. Feel free to translate that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, most people don't know that Austrian is an own language, not officially, but when Germans come to Austria, they have it hard sometimes to understand.
Bernhard is pointing out something else, that the voting power is not only directly related to the Bisq value, but on some kind of reputation or.
Yeah, that's a good point. With the money, with the BSQ, what you are earning by contribution, that get added to your voting power automatically. So when you contribute and you work every month for BSQ, and every month you earn something like 5,000 BSQ, then every month you get more voting power. Even if you sell it, you need to pay your bills and you sell the 5,000 immediately on the market. The 5,000, what you have earned, still stays as this meritocratic part of the voting. And it declines over 2 years to 0. So after 2 years, this 5,000 what you earn today has no value anymore. But that's a slow decline. In 3 months you still have 4,900 or so. And with that, basically, we want to put more weight in the voting on those people who work for the project, compared to those people who are just buying BSQ on the market. And make maybe decisions which are not very reasonable. And we have seen this in the Bitcoin ecosystem last year with the block size increase discussions and so on. There were many very rich Bitcoiners who are not very technically skilled or experienced probably, and they made very stupid suggestions, and luckily it was not implemented. When you would have a pure stake-based model where the more money you have, the more influence, then maybe Roger Ver would have made very negative decisions in Bitcoin, and core contributors like Gregory Maxwell or whoever, who maybe doesn't have so much Bitcoin like Roger Ver, would have less influence. And I think it's much better that those people who are building the system and really know the details, that they have more influence about any change or whatever, and that they are the core managers and not the rich whales. And that's the reasoning behind this, and the way how it's implemented is that the money what you have earned always will be added to your voting. You cannot avoid this, it's automatically added. And what you have in your wallet, you can add additionally. So when you have earned 5,000 BSQ and you have not sold it, then you have basically 10,000 BSQ as voting power, also the 5,000 from the reputation, and then the 5,000 what you still have in your wallet. And somebody who buy the 5,000 on the market would have only 5,000 BSQ, and your vote has the double weight like somebody else's who has the same money from the market and not have earned it. It will not cover probably the BSQ what you get from the Genesis transaction, more for technical reasons. There's no conceptual reason why not use this. It's a small disadvantage at the end. But I don't want to make this merit system more complicated like it is already. It would add just more risk for bugs or consensus issues there. And also I'm a little bit weird. I don't want to add some bigger change anymore. We're already late with everything, and it's a small disadvantage. But at the end, I hope all the contributors keep working on the project, and when you just go on with working, you continue to earn your BSQ and your meritocracy.
Okay, great. If there's there are no more questions or burning questions, I would wrap up the call because we're already 1 hour into our call. Is there any question you want to get answered? Who is watching us live? If you watch the recording, feel free to post your questions in the comments below, and we'll try to answer them afterwards. Before we stop the call, I want to point out an upcoming event in Warsaw in Poland. So if you are there, Niemann, also Eyal Ron, will present there at the local user group meeting, the Bisq DAO. So it's on the 7th of December. So if you're there, try to get your ticket as quickly as possible, because I think the seats are limited. And I think it will be a great presentation. Okay, and thanks, Niemann, for doing the presentation.
Yeah, actually, his name is Nyman, but
Nyman, sorry.
His nickname.
Nyman.
And he's he was the main contributor on the conceptual side. He's now working also on the new trade protocol with another developer. So he knows the DAO pretty well, and he's also very experienced with smart contracts in general, and works as more in the Ethereum space as consultant. So, and he has a very academic background, so it will be for sure a very interesting presentation.
Cool. Yeah, and if you want to help us on the release, don't forget to look at Transifex for your native language and to translate the missing keys. And for the testing cycle, I just created a testing channel on Slack as well, where we can also organize and talk about issues during the testing phase, so we're not spamming the general or other channels with this kind of issues. So thanks for watching. I will post everything in the description below after the call. And Manfred, if you don't have any more points to address.
Christoph, what do you estimate when we start testing?
Yeah, Devin is porting all the test scenarios to quality test. I guess we could start testing. So I plan to do a code freeze on Monday, and Pedro will look on tomorrow once again over the client to if he finds some minor design issues we should change, and I will try to address them latest early Monday morning. And yeah, starting from there, we could do the testing, and probably if we don't find any big issues, either release mid of next week or beginning the week after. I guess.
Sounds good.
Sounds reasonable.
With the redesign, there will be also a T-shirt sale to Bisq contributors. They will run on their own, the sale of it. There will be a web page where you can order it in Bitcoin or Monero, and yeah, pretty cool T-shirts. I mean, I can make a quick preview.
Ah, you have one. Cool.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's our new cool logo, and I think you don't see the color very well, but it's green. And yeah, they will have fair prices, a little bit for the people who are doing the sell, that they get compensated for this. So it's not part of the DAO, it's completely outside of the official Bisq stuff. They're doing it to support Bisq basically, but of course they should get some money for their work. And yeah, hopefully many people on the streets will wear the Bisq T-shirts.
Yeah.
When
awesome.
it runs well, we will add more items like coffee cups or whatever, or hats, of course, and so it can grow to a bigger project over time. But we'll also start small and to not invest too much.
Yeah. And there will not only be a relaunch of the client with the redesign, but also the website and everything else will be relaunched. So it's a big release. Yeah. So if there aren't any More questions, yeah, Manfred? You want to point something out?
A very small thing is I will make probably on the weekend. We have not fixed the date yet, but maybe Saturday noon European time. We'll make a small hangout session about color coins, where Aruna, she will also help on communication and education about the DAO. And she has some questions about color coins, and I think many other people as well. So I take this opportunity to answer her question, explain the color coin concept, and we will put it on our YouTube channel afterwards. But anybody who wants to join is free to join the hangout, and yeah, it's open discussion, of course, and hopefully that will help to make the idea of the Bisq DAO more easy to understand for more people. It's a little bit a difficult concept because, like, the idea of color coin need to be understood to when you really want to understand the BSQ token, how it works, and it's a little bit of technical background what's required here, and not super simple at the end.
Cool. So people will find the links to the call in the event calendar, or you just post it in the Slack channel?
Yeah, we'll post it on Slack for sure, and probably put it in the event calendar if I don't forget. But yeah, on Twitter, I try to push it out as soon we have fixed the date. So it's a little bit short term, but yeah, we want to get it out soon before testing starts and so.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so try to if you still have any resources left after your Thanksgiving dinner, try to relax watching a couple of Bisq calls and join a conversation on the colored coins this weekend, and latest, hopefully next Thursday, we either already released the new version or know that when we will release 0.90. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I want to emphasize, sorry, I don't want to delete more, but I really want to emphasize that all the Bisq contribute. We have quite a big group now. I mean, last month there were 20 contributors, and I think over the last year there are probably something like 40, 50 people who have contributed to Bisq. And those are all the main stakeholders now of the project. So I really invite all them to join these discussions and really take the time to understand the Bisq DAO. It's the base of their investment in the project at the end. So, and when there are questions, really, or ask the question. There are no stupid questions. There are only to not ask questions is stupid. And I'm at least at the core, all these contributors are really understanding the model and to feel comfortable and not have wrong assumptions like many people who are coming or with the background of ICOs and all this scam, what's going on. And so there's unfortunately a lot of negative ballast what you have to get out of your way, and we have to deal with this unfortunately after 10 years nearly Bitcoin. There have been grown a lot of ugly stuff around it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we are in this together, and yeah, we'll do this together. And yeah, I think it will be a great 2019 when we launch the Bisq DAO on mainnet. So thanks for watching, and see you latest, if not on the weekend, next Thursday, same time here on YouTube. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.